Today's conversation is about money, but not the way it's usually talked about. So many women, especially after 40, say things like, I should know more by now, or I let someone else handle it, or I feel really left behind. Welcome to today's episode of Her Energy Unlocked. And today we are going to tackle the E in the Her, which is economics and investing literacy. Today I'm sitting down with financial professionals to unpack why women were never taught about money in the first place and how we can shift from avoidance to confidence without overwhelming ourselves. This will be a two-part series to help you take control of your investing future. Joining me today are two financial leaders with over 20 years of experience at Canada's leading wealth management and asset management firms. They have worked with professionals, business owners, and executives to build strategies that grow and protect wealth, and are known for a thoughtful, personalized approach to financial planning, especially passionate for empowering women to take ownership for their financial futures. Hildebrand held her PFP designation since 2007 and is deeply passionate about providing real financial plans and life-changing advice. Sharon Ruddy holds a MBA in financial services and is a certified financial planner professional. Together, they are part of the SB Group Private Wealth Management based in Oakville, Ontario. Ladies, welcome to today's episode of Her Energy Unlocked. I am so excited to have you. I've done a couple of episodes on investing and they are popping off, I will say, because I think this is such an integral conversation to have for women, knowing a little bit about their finances, and especially with so many life changes happening in midlife, how to take control of your finances. Before we get started, ladies, can you give me a little introduction of who you are, what you do, and what we're going to kind of talk about today?
Sharon and I, as you mentioned, have been in the business for 25 years. Our careers took us through, most of the biggest financial institutions in Canada. And then the pandemic hit, and much like a lot of people, we realized that though we had wonderful careers, we were looking at a different direction moving forward for our futures. So we did work together and we started a lot of walking and talking and planning. And we decided we really wanted to build a business that we were passionate about, and that was helping people with financial planning. That is the core of our business, is bringing that financial plan to life, but also just wanting to speak to women in a way that we didn't see was resonating with them in the traditional models that we worked in. So we wanted to make sure we were able to bring to life and be very welcoming to women and empower them around their wealth.
Because finances can be very intimidating. Finances can be very overwhelming. And traditionally, we usually rely on the male partner to take care of that. And well, we need to know what's going on because life does change and we need to take control of our finances, and investing and understanding financial literacy is a integral part of that. So experience, why do so many women say they don't know enough about money? And even when they're successful in other areas of life.
Yeah, we find this interesting, and we do get this a lot. We work with a lot of professionals, Harvard graduates, and everybody thinks that they should know more about money, but we've been in this industry for 25 years, and I don't walk into my doctor's office and think, oh, geez, I should know more about medicine. Or, I don't walk into my dentist's office saying, here's the questions I want to know about what you do. It's, we go in and we trust the professionals and know that they've done their education. So I think we're here to help people, absolutely, but you should seek that professional advice. I don't think that we should know everything that we can about money going into a financial relationship. It's not about intelligence. It's really about confidence and education.
What messages about money do you think women over 40 have internalized growing up that still affect them today?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one. I think when we think about our generation, one of the biggest messages that women were taught, and not only women, but it certainly tends to affect women on a larger basis, is we're not supposed to talk about money. Money is one of those things that you don't talk about. You kind of keep that private. And I think that that's where some women have felt a lack of confidence around their wealth because they just weren't comfortable talking about it. And you have to talk about your money. There's a lot of importance about your wealth that you need to understand. And the only way to be able to gain that financial acumen is by talking about it and talking to others about it, and engaging the help of professionals, certainly.
That's so important. I've done episodes where I've talked to therapists and marriage therapists, and they talk about what can really impact relationships. And money is a big thing. Like even when dating, having those open conversations about how money is handled, how it's treated in the relationship can really determine a lot of things in the future and whether or not there's partner compatibility.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about when we're talking about women, we say single by choice or circumstance. So sometimes there isn't another person in the relationship to talk to about money with. Or there might be somebody and that person has been delegated the responsibilities. And then through life unexpected realities, that person is no longer there. So now all of a sudden that burden falls upon the woman and they haven't had the experience or the understanding, and then they feel overwhelmed by it. So that's why we believe it's very important early on to talk about it, whether it's with a trusted friend or confidant, or as we say, engaging with professionals like us, where we can help make that conversation more comfortable.
Yeah, and Mandy just said it. That conversation has to be early on. Money is about values. And what Sharon said is, we're taught money and our values very early on. It is something that you have to discuss because it plays such an important part in our relationships and our lives.
Why is it risky for women to rely entirely on a partner or someone else to manage their money?
Well, I think that's sort of what we just alluded to is
Yeah.
that, when you rely and you outsource that component of your life, you are at risk of being a victim of the circumstance and not being in control and being able to make choices. So, one of the things that we truly believe in is that whether it's around your wealth or in any aspect of your life for that matter, is that when you educate yourself, when you empower yourself, you now have choice and choice equals freedom. And that's probably one of the most important things that being in control of your wealth and your money gives you is financial freedom to make choices in your life as life decisions happen. And, that's something that money can't buy. Pardon the pun.
What advantages do women in their 40s or 50s actually have when it comes to financial decision making?
Yeah, I think we're in our 40s and 50s, and a lot of life has happened to us. So, what we do bring to the table is the experience, the life experience. So, if we don't know what we want to do, we certainly probably at this point know what we don't want to do and where we want to find ourselves. Back to your earlier conversation and what Sharon covered, the wake up call comes unexpectedly most of the time. Life will continue to happen. We spend our early years building careers, a lot of time on young children. Our focus is everywhere but on us. And I think in our 40s and 50s, and we certainly see this with our clients, is we're starting to go, okay, so where's Betty and where does Betty want to go? And retirement is just over there. And what does that look like for me? And of course, one of the biggest components of that is, do I have enough money to do what I desire? Do I have enough money to retire? So I think that's one of the advantages. We still have time to refocus and go, children are taken care of. My career is set. What next?
I always say retirement isn't an age, it's actually a number. I don't know if you align with that, but
It's funny. We talk a lot about retirement and we talk about it in terms of we use the term rewirement because for most of our clients, so if you look in the past, kind of traditional retirement planning that you get at a lot of the banks is talking about retirement projections. So how many years are you going to live and how much money do you spend each year? Like our planning goes far beyond that. And we talk about that retirement being really about rewirement because a lot of the clients we work with retirement doesn't become a point in time where they just stop everything and sit back and start collecting the money that they've earned for that point in time. They want to travel. They oftentimes want to reinvent themselves, whether that means taking on a different career part-time, whether that means giving back in their communities. So we help them with that whole notion of what does that rewirement look like? A lot of our identities have been caught up throughout our lives in our careers, and so as we shift into a different phase of life and that transition, it's a mindset shift as much as it is about the money, and we help quantify that.
Yeah.
But we need to have really deep conversations about the qualitative component of retirement and what that looks and feels like for people.
this is a two-part episode, and I think the goal for today's episode is really for people who are listening to start asking those questions. Like, okay, well, what does my retirement look like? Because you're
Yeah.
right, it is not too far away.
Yeah.
What am I envisioning for myself? And what sort of income am I going to need
Right.
to be able to do those things? Because if you want to retire and, travel the world at age 65, well, are your finances in order? And
Correct.
is that reflected? What are the most important numbers every woman should know about their finances?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. We talk a lot about sort of, know your numbers, know what your trajectory is in terms of your income requirements. What do you need to fund those things? But we talk a lot about, I think one of the key numbers that we like women to understand is their tax situation. because a lot of strategic planning is done around being tax optimal. So that's an important number. I mean, there's a lot of other ones.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to this, and we've both been separated and divorced, and you were talking about friends that are in that situation. And Sharon often says this is like know your run rate. So I think it's a lot of us don't until we're going through life circumstances. Go, what do those numbers actually look like? So it's really about just getting organized and understanding what actually comes in the door and what goes out the door.
That's really interesting. What about if you're a stay-at-home mom and technically you don't have any income coming in? Where do they even start with financial literacy and understanding the money?
I I think that's a really important question. And I think that goes back to some of the pieces we were talking about earlier. Taking ownership of your financial situation doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it alone. So if you're in a partnership and you're a stay-at-home partner, the value that you contribute to that family has a financial number associated with it, right? Like if you were to outsource that, it would be quite costly, right? If you were to outsource all the things that stay-at-home moms do, trust me, there's a big
Yeah.
number associated with that. So I think what we would encourage, in that situation, that example you just provided, would be encourage a collaborative approach. So it doesn't mean that one person can be taking the lead in the finances, and that's okay, but it needs to be collaborative. So you need to make space for the conversation to happen. So if you're that stay-at-home partner and the other person is out in the workforce earning a salary, let's sit down and talk about, hey, let's carve out some time. I'd like to better understand what's our net worth. Start there. Our net worth is our assets minus our liabilities. What does that look like? One of the things that we often encourage families to talk about, we call it continuity planning, but it's like, what do we have insurance? A lot of women don't know if there's insurance on their working spouse, right? If you're in a stay-at-home situation, you need to know that. God forbid something happens to my partner, and I am the person who's holding the household together, so I don't earn an income outside of the home. What would happen to our family if something happens to my partner? Do we have insurance? So there's some questions that you can really start to get at in a collaborative fashion. And we would hope that most partners, I mean, the couples we work with, even though women tend to come to us, we work with very collaborative families. And the men want the women to be engaged in the conversation and vice versa. So we really encourage that collaborative approach. Oftentimes there is someone that tends to be a little bit more nuanced in the conversation, but our families that we work with,
Yeah.
they're collaborating. And so we're coming together and helping them have those conversations.
I think one of the biggest part is being able to find someone, like we have a lot of uncomfortable conversations, and with your advisor or with your spouse, you have to have those uncomfortable conversations. We have to stop making these things taboo because
Mhm.
they're so important, and they are the difference between thriving and surviving, right? So you were a part of that when you were.
Yeah, my son turned 19 and I sat down with him and we opened up his TFSA and we went through everything, right? So
Right.
that financial literacy isn't just important for you, but if you do have children,
Sure.
showing them the tools and hey, the value of maybe don't go to Cactus this weekend and invest that $50 in your TFSA because that will help you grow long term.
That's right, for
Yes,
sure.
yeah.
If a woman is listening today and feels overwhelmed but is ready to take ownership of her
Mhm.
money, what do you want her to hear right now?
I think that there's lots of parts that I think is don't get overwhelmed. Like we talked about before, this is something we've spent 25 years doing. So don't expect yourself to be able to know everything that a financial planner or financial advisor knows right away. But I think it is about, carving off baby steps of what are my priorities? What am I looking to achieve? And I think we find that with a lot of our female investors is it's very purposeful. It's not about performance. It's about why am I doing this? What goal am I going to achieve at the end of this? And how am I going to get there? So I
Mhm.
think it would be start there, start in baby steps of, prioritizing what you would like to see your life look like.
Just having that initial conversation, like this is an ongoing thing that we're constantly talking about and evolving as things change, as life changes, and what our priorities are. And so, if a woman is, or if a listener is looking at getting a financial advisor or representative, what are things that they should be looking for in that person or that organization?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. First of all, you want to start with the accreditation just to make sure that those are the table stakes, right? You want to make sure we believe in financial planning, so we're accredited financial planners, right? So that's important to us. We're securities licensed, so we have the ability to advise on most investment options that are available. putting those things aside, those are the table stakes. Now you want to start to look at, where is there a fit? So are your values in alignment? And if your advisor is not willing to share what they believe their values are, like we said earlier, we
Yeah.
believe in collaborative approaches for families. We believe in, intergenerational wealth transfer conversations. We believe in making sure we empower our clients and educate them, involving them in the process. If those are not the things that your advisor is willing to share with you, then you might want to think twice about whether that's a good alignment. But you have to feel comfortable, right? This is a key relationship, just like a relationship with your doctor, your lawyer, your accountant. We play a very pivotal part in our clients' lives that goes beyond just their investment portfolio. When they're talking about, if they're going through a life transition, caring for an elderly parent, going through a divorce, getting involved, we deal with a lot of blended families. Like, we are there to have conversations that are far beyond just what's in your investment portfolio. That's important, and we need to make sure that we're doing a great job with that. But the conversation has to be much more expansive. And so I think that it's really asking some questions, being informed. I mean, we've got the beauty of Chat GPT. You can run a quick diagnosis. I'm going to talk to a new advisor. What are some key questions I should ask them? You're going to come up with things like fee transparency. How is their structure? How are they paid? Those are the types of things you want to make sure you're asking. And then you have to feel that there's a really good fit, because you're about to have hopefully a very long and a very entrusting relationship with these people. So you want to make sure you feel comfortable.
Yeah, the blended family one's a big one too, and what assets get left to what child of who the parent, right? I spend a lot of time on Reddit.
Yeah.
I'm on like personal Canadian finance, and yeah, it's very interesting because you may not want to divide your assets equally amongst all the children, especially if some may be your stepchildren, for example, right?
That's exactly. And the conversation's a lot easier to have before you get into the relationship rather than 30 years down the road when these people have been siblings for that long, and to go, okay, you two are getting half and you three are getting half. So sorry that you three don't get as much. It's a very important conversation to have early on.
So much information. And I know, as I alluded to earlier, today's episode is really to get you thinking about having that initial conversation, whether it be with an investment advisor, whether it be with your spouse, whether it be with other partners, to understanding the importance of financial literacy. So that's a wrap on today's first episode, part 1 of 2. I hope today's conversation gave you some insight and confidence to start taking ownership of your financial future, no matter where you're starting from. Because I think that's a big one. People think, oh, I'm in my
Right.
mid 40s, I'm almost 50. It's too late. I don't think it's too late. What do you think, ladies?
Never too late.
Never too late. It's never too late. It's a journey. It's a process. It's not a one-time event. So it's never too late to get that conversation started or that process started.
If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thank you to my guests, Sharon and Betty. If you want to learn more from Sharon and Betty and get more tailored financial advice for your needs, please check out the show notes where their information will be linked. This is part 1 of 2 episodes talking about your finances and getting them on track. And in our next episode, we'll be diving into different types of investing, what they are, how they work, and how to decide what's right for you. You definitely do not want to miss it. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.